Hey guys, so somebody in the comments asked me about the just knowing technique, I guess, when it comes to your manifestation. Just knowing, as opposed to like doing all of this other stuff, imagining, all that, just knowing. And I think they had kind of a skeptical tone in the comment, which I completely understand. Because if somebody is talking about this like it's a technique you can just figure out and do, I mean, whatever. I won't say anything else about that. Let me just go into this because this is very, I think, easy to understand thing. And it absolutely is a thing. Just knowing is simply having 100% faith about something. And having 100% faith about something means that you know it will happen without you having to struggle, think about it, continue to imagine it, all of that. It's essentially dropping the seed, as Neville Goddard would say. That's what just knowing is. It's faith. It's the faith step. So you have a desire that, for me, I determine is something I actually want. Then you have an intention to have it, which for me, I make sure that is as clear as possible with almost no garbage in it, meaning there's not a bunch of parts of it I'm scared of happening, or there's not a bunch of things about it that I don't really want, that I haven't worked out and shifted a little bit what the actual desired thing is. Like, it all has to feel really clear. I have to feel really good about it before I will say, I know I want this and I intend to have it. Beyond that point, that's it. That's it. I know it will happen. I know if it is a true desire, and I actually am at a point where I feel comfortable saying I intend to have this manifest in my life, I know it will happen because I've seen it play out so many times now. I should have probably felt this way 10 years ago, but it took me, I think, till about the middle of last year to feel this way about everything across the board. A couple of things happened last year that I intended to happen, that I said, if these things happen, I'll never doubt again. They did, so I'll never doubt again. It's basically reaching that point across the board. That's where everything becomes, if I have an intention, I just know. But some people can do that about certain areas of their life because it's just a matter of faith. Some people have no problem having 100% faith about certain areas of their life, generally because those areas are not that important to them, or because they already feel so competent in that area that they just don't have any doubt. So some things you can just kind of jump to. It was like that for me with money for the most part. I would say right out the gate with being successful with money, even though I was completely bankrupt, I had about 95% faith that it was all going to work out and that I could create whatever I wanted there. And that was because I felt like I was smart enough and like I could figure it out enough. And it also didn't really matter to me. Having a ton of money was not a big drive in my life. What I wanted was to be in the right relationship and to be perfect physically. Those were the things that mattered to me in 2005. The money thing was just a means to an end. It was just a comfort. It just didn't really matter to me. Not only that, but I didn't feel like, as a woman, I didn't feel like I needed to have that kind of achievement in order to feel like I was good enough. So for me, it was just really easy. If any of those components had been different, it probably wouldn't have been. If I didn't feel competent, which was a little bit of an issue for me in the beginning with that, but quickly, I had beliefs to support me. I always believed I was intelligent. I believed, I didn't think it was that hard. It didn't seem that difficult to me to build a business, especially with like the internet making it so easy and everything. Like, it just wasn't a thing where I had a whole bunch of beliefs standing in the way. And so it was just, the faith was really easy for me there. Some people might find it hard to have faith about anything. And it might only be easy like this in areas where they already feel really competent and confident, because they're relying solely on themselves. They're, if your orientation is nothing out there is helping me, there is no God, there's nothing that I'm connected to that is going to assist me, that I can rely on. I'm only reliant on my human senses and my human abilities. That's going to make this whole manifesting thing very difficult, because much of it is based on outer assistance. Not outer, but assistance outside the human self. So You can have this just knowing about certain areas while not having it at all in other areas. And that's really all just knowing is. It is essentially, that translates essentially in reality to not thinking about it, not worrying about it. My biggest challenge with this, I can't not know anymore. That's the thing. I think when you get past a certain point, you just realize that to continue to doubt that this is the way things work is just like a habitual circle jerk. It's just like something that you're doing to make yourself miserable, and just let it go. Like that's where I got to with this. My biggest issue is patience, is knowing that I want something, intending to have it, and then having to kind of like exist in that sort of empty space. What Neville Goddard calls it the Sabbath. It feels good in some ways because you know you're going to get what you want, but it's not here yet, and you don't, for me, during that phase, especially if it's something where I think I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff, it's hard for me not to just start to try to do stuff or start to try to figure it out, or, all of that. That's my challenge with that part of it, is if, that's really it. It's just not it's essentially resting until the information is given to me, until I get the inspired idea about something, and then I know what to do. And you just know, it's effortless. You're compelled. It's like you're on a ride toward the thing. That is the feeling. By the way, I mean, that is the exact way I would describe when Esther Hicks talks about the very like high vibe feeling where you're in creative mind. It's the same thing. It's the same exact feeling. Exactly. When you get ideas from that, this is another thing that I'm learning to just go with and not question right now, is when you're in that certain state, if you get a thought to do something, it's not just a thought. It's something that you should do. And in the past, I have thought about things like that, or I've said, I have a more important thing I need to do right now, so I have to shelve that inspiration I just got. And I've learned to if I get that now, I drop everything and I do the thing, I do the idea or whatever, I act on it, put it in motion. That is, that's new for me. I don't know why, it just is. It's new for me. Before I was prioritizing things I had decided were important over these inspired feelings, and it is a very, very bad feeling when you have an inspiration to do something and then you do something else instead. It's an awful feeling for me. I track my moods every day, and I've got one day that was just like totally in the red, horrible day, and it was the day where I wanted to be doing something. I wanted to write something, and instead I had to do a bunch of garbage work for my business. I had to do a bunch of like busy manual labor type stuff because I was the only one available to do it, and I was unable to act on that. It was like stifling a sneeze times 10,000. I had a horrible day that day. But anyway, so yeah, back to the just knowing. It's if you're not naturally just able to do that, it's not something you're going to be able to force yourself to do. It's not something that you're going to be able to say, I just know. I think one of the big issues that I haven't even identified as being a huge issue in this whole community, this whole manifestation community, is that I think people are thinking they can just think something, or they can just say something, and that is all it takes. You can't say to yourself, I just know that this is going to happen. That's not, this is a much deeper feeling and a much deeper orientation. I keep using that word because it's true. If you're oriented a certain way that has been producing an outer reality that you're not enjoying, just saying some stuff is not going to change that. You have to change. Like, you have to move. There has to be movement that you can feel. You have to feel different. You have to feel different. You have to feel like a different person in some ways, slowly over time. At some point, you got to look back and say, holy shit, that was like a different person back then. It's not going to be you the way you are now, enjoying all these new things. It's going to be a different version of you that you have to take on and persist in becoming in order to create this outer stuff. And, we're talking right now about the technique, about a small thing, like just knowing, like I talked on this channel over the last few months about this channel hit 10,000 subscribers. I felt a spark of interest and desire. Can't force that to happen. Prior to 10,000, didn't have it. I had an interest in the channel, but I was just like, this is just something I'm doing for fun, whatever. There was a spark. It happened naturally, organically. And I said, whatever. Long story short, I had this desire, and the way it played out was I didn't just know it was going to, I said, okay, I'm going to get 100,000 subscribers. There's no just knowing about that. I mean, rationally, I could probably say my channel will have 100,000 subscribers at some point, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not a rational knowing. It's an understanding that there's a desire that will be fulfilled because true desires are meant to be fulfilled. And you can't, look, it just takes a while of seeing that play out, I think, for a lot of people in a lot of areas to start to have that knowing fully, this all requires some level of faith, and faith is essentially knowing that something else is going to set it up for you. So the percentage of faith you have is the percentage of knowing you have. If you get above 90%, you're pretty much there. You're pretty much at a point where you don't do much beyond define the desire and have the intention. Because you're overall so in touch with the way this works that you don't sit around questioning it anymore. You don't think that there are some things that are off limits anymore. You don't have these like downer thoughts about, really all this comes down to is shifting from your perception of life being that this is tough and like you're not, this is maybe kind of a bad deal, to this is sort of a magical place where everything everything you're here to create, essentially. One vantage point is, I was born into this hard life of suffering, and it's just ups and downs, and I'm just along for the ride. And the other one is like, I'm a creator, like Esther Hicks says, I'm a co-creator here. Like I'm co-creating with God. The just knowing part is the part you let God do, or whatever you want to call it. Your higher self, the universe, whatever it is you like to call it. Whatever makes sense for you. So, you can imagine how you live a completely different life if you switch into this other way of viewing it. It's a totally different life. It's an exciting, happy place to be. It's a place where you're essentially, this whole thing to me feels nearly identical to a video game. I don't know how else to put it. That's what it feels like. It feels like discovering all these things that, discovering abilities that you didn't know you had, and figuring out how this whole thing works, and figuring out little tricks to make your abilities more powerful, and, all this stuff like that. It's just what it feels like to me. It's, it just kind of, it feels like that to me. I've spent a lot of time playing video games. It feels like a video game. It's got the same level of draw. Like I'm kind of obsessed with it. It's so interesting. I can't stop playing it. And I think it's not only meant to just be fun, but it's also meant to kind of develop you a little bit. Some of these video games, they develop you as a human. They help you build skills and stuff like that. That's, I think, part of it. It's what it feels like to me. So yeah, the just knowing thing, they call it an advanced technique. It's not. It's just a state that you reach when you have consistently, been watching this play out and doing your best to follow the process, which is define your desire, have an intention to have it. Do everything throughout your day with as much faith that you're going to get it, that it's going to work out as possible. That's pretty much it. And be grateful for the things you already have. But that to me kind of goes along with step 3. Like, if you're walking around with a ton of faith, you're hopefully not thinking about how much your life sucks all the time. And being like, who cares about that? I just only care about this other thing, you know? It comes after enough time. It'll naturally come to even the people who are the least naturally faithful as they gather enough evidence in the physical world, reality, that it is working that way. If you're somebody who's already naturally sort of tuned the right way, you'll find it a lot easier to have faith about things. I put myself pretty solidly in the middle here. Easy with money, not at all easy with my body. A miracle in my mind that everything flipped. I mean, it's not really, it makes logical sense that I ended up at this place, but it felt miraculous. It felt like something that would never happen. That I would flip how I saw the value and importance of and purpose of a romantic partner that I had just so little faith in. So, I'm kind of like, I had my really easy one, my pretty hard one, and then the nearly impossible one. And seeing all those things change naturally, it's just like, at some point, it's just, you can't ignore it anymore. You can't say, oh, maybe it doesn't work this way anymore. You just can't. It just happens too, if this happens 1,000 times in small ways, large ways, medium ways, if it just happens over and over and over again and you're able to observe it that way, at some point, don't you just have to say, well, I know this is how this works. I know that this is how this works. And when you get to that point, the process becomes non-mystical. But it's not really uncomplicated. A lot of people are saying it's not complicated. In my experience, certain things have definitely been complicated. Getting to the point where I actually feel comfortable having an intention about something, that can be a long process for me, but it's not an unpleasant one. I want to feel that total non-resistant feeling about anything I'm saying as a creator. Create this. I don't want to say create this fucked up thing. I don't want to experience any more fucked up things. Like, I think at some point it helps getting older and experiencing more stuff so that you get to the point where you say, I don't want to create any more fucked up shit. I'd rather just sit here in my car listening to REO Speedwagon than create this drama in my life by going, I want. I'm going to create it even though I don't feel right exactly about it. I'm going to create the version that matches this feeling that isn't right, or this feeling about myself that isn't right. But I want it, make it happen. I mean, you get that enough times, you create that enough times, and you experience the downside enough times, you're just like, nah, I'm only creating perfect things from here on out. And the way I'm going to create those perfect things is by feeling perfect about the things that I decide that I want to have happen, period. I think that's part of the end game. I think I've entered the end game. Anyway, that is what I've got to say about just knowing. I hope that helped. I hope that at least helped the commenter that made that comment. It's definitely not something that you should feel bad about if you can't just do it. Because it's not really about doing it if you can't do it. It's not a technique. It's basically a place that you arrive at or are already at, and can be different depending on what topic we're talking about. So have a great day.